Bum, 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 bum. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to our big Fans of S.H.I.E.L.D. review of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. This week we're going into Season 4, continuing our little three-part quest. This week, LMD, episodes 9 through 15. So, a lot to talk about, a lot of fun stuff to get into. Let's jump right into our introductions. Starting over on this side right here, it is from Smoking Gun Reviews, Rob Stone.
What's up, everybody? Good to be here again for a very exciting section of this season, the LMD section. That's all I really have to say, except I do want to say one thing, and I was thinking about this all day long. Our show, our little show that we do here, that we've been doing since like season 6, right? I just want to say to everybody out there that I've watched a lot of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff, and so much of it just feels like it's just another job. It's just another show. It's just the thing that they got to talk about. You know, I'm not saying these people don't like it. I'm just saying that they don't. They just there's a passion missing from a lot of these people that cover this, and the people who have the most passion are people like us and other people who just do this for the sheer love of it, and with the combined passion and with everything that each of us brings to this, and I'm including myself. You can't go wrong here. So keep, if you like this, if you retweet this, watch the thing. All right. I see on Twitter, it's all day, every day on my feed. S.H.I.E.L.D's the best. S.H.I.E.L.D's the best. S.H.I.E.L.D's the best. Where do I get content? And I'm like, yeah. Are you looking? Because I know you can find it. If you're looking for people that feel as passionately as you all feel about it, then come watch the show. Watch the episodes. Watch our stuff. We are worth listening to, and I am, again, including myself. But all these people bring the heart, passion, the funny, the details, everything about it, and that will lead me to the guy right below me, Mr. Don Willie.
Oh, good evening, everyone. As you know, I'm Agent Williams, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., the real S.H.I.E.L.D., and so happy to be here, as always, with my fellow agents so that we can discuss the most exciting arc in the most exciting season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the LMD saga. Corrie, take it away.
Yeah. Oh, this is such a fun little blip of the 3-part series that we're looking at. I love the plot lines. It's so exciting that we get to discuss things philosophically, like what is it mean to be human? What is self-awareness and identity? But then we're also, cracking jokes about robot movies. And I am totally in Camp Mac and Yo-Yo with The Robots Must Die. I'm going to go get my shotgun axe right now. I'll be right back. Terminator scarred me as a child, so, I'll be ready.
Oh yeah, that is where we all should have learned our basic lessons from early James Cameron, both on Aliens and Terminators, the robots around us. So let's get in. Do want to take 1 second actually before we jump into mention some people that are always here in the chat tonight. We've got Deborah and Barbaro. Welcome to both of you. I know more trickle in as the show goes on. So I want to thank all of you that do manage to catch us every week and everyone that just catches us in the archives. Your views are important. And, I know that I can't always make live shows. That's why we leave them recorded so you can catch them whenever you need. All right, now let's jump right into things. The LMD saga. Of course, Ghost Rider has just disappeared, taken off Uncle Eli into unknown space. We have to get rid of the Darkhold, and Ada beginning to act a little strange. Certainly, we do catch her making a brain at the end of episode 7. So let's kick things off this week. We'll start with Dawn down in the corner. Dawn, why don't you kick things off with episode 9, broken promises.
Okay, so broken promises, yes, Ada acting very, very strange after reading the Darkhold. And, you have her two boyfriends, the one guy who she is obsessed with, and then the one guy who's obsessed with her. And those happen to be Leopold. Never heard his name used so much other than by Ada. Mr. Leopold Fitz, and also Dr. Holden Ratcliffe. And, for whatever reason, Ada is now obsessed with the Darkhold. Oh, and also, she's still got May tied up. We've got we have a new gentleman, Vijay Nadir, who was an Inhuman who was in a cocoon a little while ago. He's been woken up, and his sister is none too pleased with the fact that her brother happens to be an Inhuman of any kind. And there are things that happen to transpire because of that, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. And also you have the new director of S.H.I.E.L.D., Mr. Jeffrey Mace, trying to make all niceties with Daisy and bring her out and say, hey, look, she is a hero and everyone should be falling at her feet because she saved you all. And, she's not really too happy about being in the spotlight, but in order to kind of keep herself out of jail, she's playing nice. Oh, and Glenn Talbot as well. We also have Agent Phil Coulson, him and Mac, not taking a backseat, but also, it's one of those things where the new director has them, kind of running around like chickens with their heads cut off and is doing too many showy things for the public, I think, and not really keeping to the spirit of what S.H.I.E.L.D. should be. And unfortunately, Coulson and Mac kind of have to let him think that he's in charge for a little while longer, because if not, things could actually collapse a little bit. And plus also, they're like, okay, we're going to follow him because he's the face of S.H.I.E.L.D. and also he happens to be superhuman. So we'll let him do his thing for right now. This was an interesting episode for me just because you see them kind of settling into this new dynamic to a certain extent, but also not being very comfortable with the fact that they're settling into the new dynamic. They have no idea still that May is an LMD. So, Ratcliffe has done a hell of a job. Well, no, at this point, everyone's thinking it's just Ada doing all of this. So Ada has done a hell of a job by using LMD May to get close to Coulson and also to get information about the inner workings of S.H.I.E.L.D. And it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, murder bots. And the most hilarious thing though is that I think this is really the season where Mac started to become like the guy who points out all the obvious stuff. Like he would do it every now and then before, but this was the season where it's like every 5 minutes where it's like, you know how badly this could go wrong. Mac is the guy that now points it out all the damn time. Like, yeah, here are the 3 ways that this could totally go sideways and we're all done for. So whoever came up with Mac being that guy, gold, absolute gold. Because it's one of those things where you definitely like, wow. I was thinking in my head. I was thinking that the entire time they decided they wanted to go with this plan. and Max says it. And I'm pretty sure most people at home have probably thought the same thing too. You know, I wasn't a big fan of Mr. The Real Shield, Mac, before, but now, you know, I'm by this season I was totally on board.
Yeah.
Agent Corrie, you know, your thoughts on this episode, and and also Senator Nadir. Goddamn, it's cruel.
Yes. Oh, yes. Well, okay. So this is the episode where we finally have confirmation that Mac and Yo-Yo are perfect for each other. Because they're both members, card-holding members of the Robots Will Always Attack like group. Because we have Max saying to Fitz, he's like, robots will always attack. What's wrong with you two? To Fitz and Radcliffe. And then literally later on in the episode, Yo-Yo is like, robots always attack. Smart people are stupid. So I love that they're both, you know, on the same level in terms of that. And then we have, I think, Mac talks about how he has a special clause in his insurance and life insurance for death by robot. And she's like, your upbringing was much different than mine. But he's convinced that at some point he's going to be killed by a robot. So that I loved. That was hilarious. This was the episode where I started seeing the parallels between Mace and Phil. And how Mace is starting to behave more and more like Phil, or maybe he's trying to copy Phil. He's definitely learning a lot from Phil and kind of following in his footsteps. So if Phil is like shield agent level 60, Mace is shield agent level like 1.5. He's just starting out towards being his own version of Phil Coulson. But they have the same sense of humor in a sense. In a way, because when Mace brings in Daisy to have like a one-on-one talk with her, he says something like, we have it here. I know you're new here. And she just gives him this weird look. And he goes, it was a joke. I was making a joke to break the ice. And that reminds me of season 1, where Phil says to Ward, you know, did you hear the one about the guy who was afraid to fly? And where it's like, I've done a jump drop in, you know, heavy fire, sir. I can handle it. So we have this similar sort of humor that they use, which I thought was kind of neat. And the more I saw Mace through this arc of the season, the more I started to really like him as a character and appreciate what he was trying to do. Maybe not successfully, but his heart's in the right place. And he definitely has like the same heart set as Coulson, which is he believes unwaveringly in S.H.I.E.L.D. and what they're trying to do, but he's not blind to their imperfections, right? But he still sees them as doing good in the world. Even when he's been kidnapped and is being held at knife point and threatened, he still doesn't waver in his convictions. I also loved seeing Simmons fighting a lot more in this arc. You know, she knocks a guy out with a pitcher, which, you know, season 1 Simmons wouldn't have done. So it's nice to see how she's learned to observe her surroundings when she's undercover and use what is around her as a weapon. I loved her American accent, as if anyone could replace Margaret, right? So it's nice to see Simmons kind of flexing her muscles and doing more undercover stuff and improving with her lying even more this season. What else? Oh, and then we have the great quote of, you know, Simmons has been kidnapped 3 times since I've known her. Well, only twice on this planet. And Mace going, what, really? So, you know, Mace is underestimating Simmons, as everybody does. But yeah, and I think that's about it. Just the robot life insurance stuff and enjoying seeing how Simmons is developing as a character. Oh, and Radcliffe at the end of this episode says something about wanting to live forever or being able to live forever. So talk about a God complex. And Ada's going to misinterpret this and put everybody in the framework. And so, you know, he kind of gets his comeuppance in a way. But we also realize that Ada really isn't the orchestrator of all of this. She's the tool at the moment still. And Radcliffe really has been behind everything. He wrote her speech about being a real girl, right? Bringing in the Pinocchio sort of parallel. So we know that Radcliffe can't be trusted. But every time he turns around and betrays us, I never see it coming. And it frustrates me so much because I'm like, I was just getting to the point where I thought I could trust you in some small way, but no, then you take that minuscule amount of trust and then you just stab me in the back with an android. So, yeah. Him and Nadir, I don't know. I think just can we both put them in the office with the exploding Inhuman and just be done with it?
Well, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is always good with their comeuppance. So that's one thing we can always kind of trust in with this show. Yeah, this was a great one. Actually, Rob and I were talking about this a little bit before we just came online. The bookends of the LMD arc, I think, are awesome. Obviously, we end with self-control, which we'll get to and why that is awesome. But part of that is pacing. And I think Broken Promises really does that here. It kicks straight into high gear. Which I do really appreciate. We got to hide the Darkhold. We've got, Ada gets discovered. Ada attacks the base. We get the whole battle there. We get the reveal from May, kind of that, the questions is, does she know she's an LMD? Does she undercover as things? What is the motivation that she has? So there is so much that goes on. Plus, yeah, we get the hint that Ada is the villain at the end of last episode. By here, we see that it's Radcliffe. Now, part of this is, this was the winter premiere in January. Returns Tuesdays, January 10th. So we'd had our Christmas break. So this really is kind of a catch-up episode, which is why it begins right at the end of, in fact, kind of overlapping episode 8 with Ada changing and finding May and cleaning her up and doing all of those things. So we can tell that it's immediately happening. But yeah, there are some changes. Corrie, you mentioned Mace feels a little different. He's a little tougher, but he's a little more comfortable in his skin. Even his banter with Daisy, there's less of that show in front. It feels like we're starting to actually get to the person that Mace is inside and trying to get out. Yeah, Mac's whole thread about robots and how they're always going to turn. We had more movie references, I think, than any other episode. And we get classics. We get the whole Terminator series with a great joke with Yoya is we have to make him watch the Terminators. Yoyo's like, we have to make Radcliffe watch the Terminator series. Max, even Salvation? Yes, he brought this on himself. You get comments about that. You get Maximum Overdrive, which is another classic Robot Rebellion movie. What's the other? He killing Ada with the axe and hitting roll credits at the end. The movie comes through. We get Chopping Mall referred to, which again pops up later on. So yeah, we get all of Mac's personality. We get to see that Radcliffe is behind this, though in a way, we got what Ada was pretending to be in this episode or posing as is actually by the end of this arc where she is. Yeah. So it's kind of a sneak preview in that sense. Is it just takes a little bit longer. I think Radcliffe might have pushed the book away, but once it was in, it wormed in his brain, and then he was like, "No, now I've got to get it back because it will have all my answers."
And we have Ada 2.0. So we have like our next generation of Ada.
Our next generation. We thought that Ada was making the brain by herself. Well, she was probably making it under orders from Radcliffe at that point. We have to start putting these things together. And then we get the other side of this episode, which is the Senator Nadir, Vijay, you're Inhuman, the disgust that the aliens could be one of us, the fact that this family, these two, I mean, you feel bad for Vijay, but the two of them did make a deal that if one of them was infected by the alien agent, aka was Inhuman and underwent Terrigenesis, the other would do the right thing, which we all know is obviously killing. So it's harsh, but they had this conversation. Okay, your mom dies right in front of you, alien invasion. I get that. We do meet Shockley for the first time, who is kind of our little mini villain through this arc. We also get the first mention of the Superior, the one behind the Watchdogs. So again, we're placing stuff, but we also just get a kick-ass, so much happening. Ada's discovered and killed through this whole episode. The Darkhold pursuit is on fire. Plus, we get all this background stuff. So, man, what a way to start an arc. Rob, what did you think about Broken Promises?
It was pretty good. And then that's it.
Moving on.
This is like we were talking about. This really comes out and hits the ground running really hard. And as much as like the one thing about this arc, the only thing that like feels incomplete or feels kind of, I don't know, like what, like maybe should have been in a different season is the whole Nadir plot. I feel like she's a carryover from other stories that should have happened during, like, she would have fit way better with the fight against the Inhumans. Considering all the things we have going on, I know that she's just this extra difficulty while this new version of S.H.I.E.L.D. tries to get going. It's like the last thing they possibly need is this actual thing that if they didn't have the Darkhold and Ada problem going on, they could focus on this like a lot more. Instead, now she's able to operate with a complete like we know that there's like eventually there's a leak in the situation. She's able to get in there because they're all distracted. Radcliffe and Fitz are fooling around with Ada. Gemma's trying to navigate her waters there. You got Mace and Coulson figuring out their stuff. May, May's in a closet. And so it's like all these things happening at the same time. It's just a lot, but it's nice to see like the actors who played Nadir and Vijay do a really good job here. It's just like the robots though, like the robot angle where it's like I don't feel anything when anything bad happens to one of these robots. I don't feel anything for the Nadir character. Like I want her to go just as hard as any of these robots. Because there's too many parallels. And when we remember when this aired, I didn't think about it too much when it came on, but it was reflecting a lot of attitudes that were currently going on. And it just brought all that back. It flashed me back to a time that I don't want to remember. And it made me that much more like amped up and angry at what was going on in this. And so it was nice to have, the Ada part where we could get some satisfaction in watching a robot get its head cut off. Because one of the things I rant about in my reviews that are still, trickling out is that it's not a she, it's an it. It is an it. It is okay to call it an it. It doesn't matter if it looks like a girl.
Hey. Robots' rights there, man, okay? Yep. Androids' rights, bro.
No, get out of here. And yeah, like Don was saying, I'm completely on board with Mac this season, where he's gotten to that point where he's our guy to say what we're thinking.
Yeah.
And to point out all the things, because as much as this is interesting, it's pretty crazy that they're doing this. And my favorite moment though in this, besides Ada getting her head cut off, was when she first reveals to everybody that she's not turned off, and how they can't, and it's just so creepy, and just how everything just goes so sideways so fast. And yeah, there's just so many good things to like about this episode, but I don't want to keep going. So let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
And Radcliffe says she's a person in this episode, you know, and I'm like, no, she isn't. She doesn't have a soul. She's not a female.
Android
She's
rights, okay? Android
Yeah,
rights.
keep that for Detroit becoming Detroit. Keep it in that video game.
Well, one thing
I-
there's a couple of things that this episode does is one is it does start this conversation is what makes one real, what makes one alive. Now, I think Radcliffe is partially distracting Fitz to try and slow him down so Ada might have a chance to escape. But it still is an interesting question, which we hit on as, you know, as this little arc progresses, especially as May comes to realize, and you get even that final discussion with her and Phil on the base. There is start to be a line of what is real and what isn't, and what is that characteristic. And while we don't have to go in for any answers, I like the fact that we're having that conversation.
And even the framework itself, right? It is a copy of the real world, right? Like the VR versus reality.
And yet that becomes Radcliffe's question is what is the difference if one's, you know, consciousness, understanding processes can continue to live on? What else the body? Again, it's an interesting question. The other one,
And you better believe that I'm gonna be throwing in a robot insurance ad when I finally get to releasing this review. I'm gonna definitely put something together for that because just like he says, this is exactly how the Lawnmower Man ends.
Yeah, thank you. Other perfect movie reference. The other one, and I just want to touch on this sort of real quick. Rob, you mentioned that this arc feels like it belongs in a different season. And I get the impression that this was possibly the beginnings of what was going to be a tie-in with the Inhumans series, which premiered the following fall. So there was already discussions. And the reason I say this is Nadir, when he's shot, undergoes effectively a second pterogenesis. He cocoons himself up again. And that ended up being part of the plot of the Inhumans series is the prince trying to go through its second pterogenesis because his pterogenesis made him human, which is totally stupid and unnecessary. Anyway, we won't get into that show because it's bad. But I think that this might have eventually laid in. And in fact, even in the end scene when Coulson goes to space or whatever, might have supposed to tie into the Inhumans moon city rather than, you know, what it ended up being. So I think they were trying to start to lay some groundwork because, this becomes the plot point that completely disappears after this and is never touched on again. So anyway, while I was watching it, that just sort of jumped up into my head, but I don't want to distract more. We've got a bunch of stuff to talk about. So Corrie, why don't you lead us off with our discussion of our next episode, episode 10, The Patriot.
Right.
Fun one.
I really liked this one. So basically what we have is the one plot line of Mace presenting Quake as a hero to society, and there is an attack on his life. There's a sniper on the roof, and he's shot at, not with any kind of bullet, but like special bullets that seem to like drill through the podium that he's using. And then, of course, they go to the proper shield protocol, which is to protect the director at all costs and get him out of there, which, I don't know. Knowing now what we know about Mace, why didn't they train him more? Like he said something on one of the episodes about, you know, he had a couple weeks of basic training and Piper had him pinned in like 2 seconds on the mat. And I'm going, if he's coming from a military background, he should have had a little bit more abilities, and they should have trained him way more before they shoved him into the field, even if he is the face of S.H.I.E.L.D., right?
Timelines.
That was,
they didn't have much time.
I guess so, but anyway, and then what happens is, of course, their plane or their jet is attacked. We lose Burroughs, who goes flying out the side of the plane, which I wasn't too upset about. I was like, good riddance. And then as soon as they land, Mace goes, no, we got to find Burroughs. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Come on, he's dead. I know we leave no person behind, but does that have to include Burroughs? Because really, he's a bit annoying. But Mace wants to go find Burroughs. And then we find out later, it isn't really just to save Burroughs. It's to get the briefcase that Burroughs was attached to. And in that briefcase is the serum that Jeffrey Mace is taking. So this is when we have the big reveal that he actually isn't inhuman. He is just a normal, well-trained individual. And he's using a variant of the hide serum that Daisy's father had. So I guess the military got access to that, and then they were tweaking it and came up with something that was similar to a super soldier serum, but not really. And we learned that, it isn't working as well as they think it's working for Mace. So this is when we kind of see him at his lowest point or his most pathetic point. Like he's vulnerable, but you see that, without his super soldier serum, I don't really have a better name for it, he really doesn't have the same competency and confidence that he had before. And it reminds me of that quote of, if you're not anything without the suit, then you don't deserve the suit, that Tony says to Spider-Man, to Peter Parker. And it's kind of the same here. Like Mace is so desperate to have the serum that he sort of negates his own abilities as an agent to do something, and it reminds me also of May and Sky's conversation where she says, your powers aren't what make you a good agent. I made you a good agent. I trained you. So that's kind of like the lowest, at least that I see for Mace, where he's just scrambling to get the serum, and then he gets shot in the backside, which I thought was a real low blow. Like, really? Like, you have to go for that comedy? Bang, right? But then I also love that he gets to see that his team still supports him. Like Phil and Mac are still beside him. They're still going to help him. He has this mentality of, I can't be here to protect you. I don't have the suit. And Phil has a line about something like, we don't need you to protect us, So he kind of underestimates his agents. And so he gets a firsthand taste of what these guys can do that aren't super powered, and that, someone who's just trained really well and is smart, like Phil and like Mac, can get out of these situations. And I think it's a great kind of learning experience for Mace, and he really changes moving forward. But it's also puts a lot of guilt on him. And so we see in the following episodes that after this, he's constantly trying to prove himself. He wants to prove himself, almost similar to how Phil was, where he was taking risks and chances because he knew he was going to die in the future seasons. And so he was doing things that were ridiculous and highly risky, right? You don't risk the general when a soldier can do the work. And I think Mace kind of starts to fall into that trap, where he so desperately wants to prove himself. And that I found was really sad. He hasn't really found his spot yet, and he hasn't found out that he's valuable without his superpowers. And I think probably the military has just been feeding him the line that, you're valuable because you can be the Patriot. Whereas Phil and S.H.I.E.L.D. and the S.H.I.E.L.D. family are telling him, whether or not you have superpowers, you have a place here, which I really liked that message. General Talbot being an absolute jerk. He takes over the base, even though he really shouldn't, because Gemma is like the highest ranking. Anyway, he takes over the base. He's telling people what to do. But I do love his line about Agent May, next to my mother-in-law, you are the most intimidating woman in the world who can get us answers. So I was like, well, okay. I mean, at least he recognizes that. And I love that Gemma is smart enough to, she's smart, but she uses Ada's head to terrify the Russian that they have in the holding cell to get information from him. So I love that they're really, when they lose Mac and they lose Jeffrey and they lose Phil, the team really has to pull double the weight because they don't have those agents there at the moment to help out. So we see like Gemma really stepping up and Fitz really stepping up, which I liked. I love that May freaks out when she's in a spa. They like program her to be in a spa to relax, and it just stresses her out, and she immediately knows something is wrong. So clearly May doesn't function well, and like May would not be watching ASMR. That does nothing for her. She just wants to punch people, right? What else here? I also liked the line that the one Russian agent they had in interrogation. He says, "You were so weak, you bring in this woman to scare me," about Simmons. And it reminded me of like Agent Carter a bit, where they're talking about the Russian, like, why do you use women? They're inquiring with the Russian spies, why are you using women? They're not of any use. And the Russians are saying actually they're of more use because they can go by undetected. Yeah, so I liked that. And we see Mac using a hatchet instead of the shotgun axe. That was kind of a little like reference. He's like, it's not an axe, but I'll make it work. And I love those fight scenes at the end where we have, Mac with the soldiers and Phil and Jeffrey. And I like that also Phil's solution to their problem is, even though Jeffrey doesn't have superpowers, they don't know that he doesn't have superpowers. So we're just going to use his strongest asset, which is his ability to be a good actor and to like negotiate with people and to schmooze and deal with people. Like, he's a good talker. He's a good actor. And so he goes out there, which takes a lot of guts because he has no protection and he has no superpowers now. And he could be just shot and killed, but he trusts Phil's plan and steps out and has to sell it and be a distraction. And then I like that the girls come in and help rescue at the end. May shows up to help Mac, and Daisy quakes into the room with Phil and everybody. So yeah, and then we end with May discovering that she's a robot because she's in the fight. She gets cut on the back. And so now she has this existential angst about what she is. But yeah, those were the kind of cool points I picked up on.
And nothing draws an audience in like existential angst.
Yeah. Oh, and we also get the truth about what happened with Mace in the photo. He tells Phil, and that's kind of the point where he thinks he's going to be fired, and Phil surprises him by saying, "No, stay in your position. We need you doing what you're doing, but I'm taking the reins from now on."
Yeah, it is a nice switch up episode where we do get the exposure of the Patriot as just being a man who wants to do good and was given an opportunity to do so, which again is at least a little, it shows that there is a noble spirit behind Mace, and he can understand that there are people that are more effective. He can see that, happening. And I don't think that he's too prideful the way that he asked Talbot to leave at the end to give his origin story effectively to Coulson.
Yeah, he's basically, sorry, I was just saying he's basically like a Steve Rogers before the serum. He's doing the same, he's following the same route. He's trying to do the right thing.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, it ends up being is that Coulson is the kind of person that he wants to be. He just isn't aware of Coulson being that person yet, really. So it's, again, we get just, it is that kind of nice arc. Man, I love Adrian Pasdar in this. Talbot and Coulson have the best banter. And I love how their relationship really has evolved over the show into almost a respectful friendship at this point. It even gets stronger later on. I love the two of them on the back and forth. They're really good with getting at each other. we find out, again, a couple of interesting things. This is when Quake officially goes public as Quake. I mean, he was introduced kind of when she was saved, and Mace said, all right. And we have Burroughs refer last episode to her as Quake. And she's like, that's not my name. And he's like, not according to the press release. So this is kind of her official adaptation of that moniker, which is kind of cool. You mentioned the intimidation bit with May. Did like May's kind of response. Yes, a spa is not her environment. And what does she utter at the end? I knew this wasn't real, which motivates a kind of reworking of the framework, which we get into next episode, which is very cool.
And she punches the masseuse in the face. Like by the third repeat, she's just like, boom.
And that's how she wakes up, apparently. As I think that's, I love how they sort of played that in. So again, this is just kind of interesting bit. And as you said, this is where Coulson officially says, all right, Mace, you can be the face, but I run operations. And again, a more comfortable feel, I think, that everybody is into. So a good background info plus, again, moves things forward. Rob, what do you think about the Patriot?
I think the only thing, there's not too much left to say except I liked the Radcliffe and Fitz part of this, of Radcliffe now trying to figure out how to get in, again, trying to, find ways to get access, and Fitz on the other side of it, still trying to work an angle that gets Ada working again. Like they just can't stop, and the whole one of the things that this sets up for later, is Radcliffe and Fitz's relationship. More of this that's been as it's gone on, of the father figure for Fitz, and this kind of, as much as he wants to do the right thing, Fitz still looks up to this guy still, and they're almost separately working on the same goals secretly. And just seeing where this is going to take Fitz and Radcliffe is pretty interesting. May, the highlight for me is May waking up and realizing it. Although I just wish that if she hadn't told them, like they were basically looking for how to improve the framework, and she told them how. I wish May had just kept it to herself, but then you don't have a story. That's about it.
Don, you got some catch up of things we missed?
I mean, listen, this episode obviously very interesting for the reveals that it does, especially the reveal that Jeffrey Mace, the Patriot, is not an Inhuman, and it's kind of like, wait, okay, you've been pretending to be one of the things that people hate the most in this world right now, all for clout. Like, who pretends to be a public enemy or something to be that they know most people are going to be afraid of for fame? Like, that was the thing that kind of got me about it. It was like, wait, hold on. People hate Inhumans right now, and you just pretended to be one so you could play superhero. Okay, you're a weirdo. Sorry. Look, I like you. Got a nice smile on you there, guy. But that's just weird. I'm sorry. It's weird. I can't. Listen. The whole thing with May. I was just waiting for her to be like, does not compute, and the head to explode. Because like, before this is kind of like, well, does she know that she's not human? What's it gonna be like when she finds out? And then she finds out, and it's just kind of like, holy shit, wait, I don't know what's going on here, but I know I got to keep this a secret from everybody. Yeah, the whole thing is, I love how Quake used her powers. When they had the whole bullet come out the sky thing, well, not from the sky, but the bullet off of the roof. I love how she used her powers to jump up there and go and apprehend the sniper. I don't think we saw. That was a very creative use of her powers, and I don't think that we saw enough creative uses of her powers, unfortunately. Like we got to see it every now and then, but I think that they definitely could have found more ways to be creative about how she used her powers in certain situations. I'm trying to think what else.
In Mace's defense about pretending to be an Inhuman, he does address that with Phil, and he says they needed an Inhuman that was like high ranking, and they didn't have anybody to fill the role at that point. I guess they didn't think Skye was high ranking enough or whatever.
No, I think he says, and your girl was off doing was off the reservation, was off doing her thing. So because she had kind of gone rogue, I think that left Mace is the one.
Yeah, and he says something along the lines of, when your country calls, you answer the call. So he's very patriotic, very like, the U.S. called, they needed me, they thought I could do this job, and so I said yes. That's how he sees it.
Well, it's funny. Like thinking about Burroughs, right? I don't know, for some reason he reminds me of what's that one senator from Florida that's in trouble right about now?
Matt Gaetz.
Yes. I'm sorry.
He's a congressman, but yeah.
Whatever he is, doesn't he remind you of him for some reason? Like, it's like, yes. As soon as I saw him sucked at the plane, I was like, oh my God. But like, why can't that happen in real life?
He makes me think of Sitwell.
Well, yeah, that Sitwell as well, but I'm sorry, like, yeah, that was cruel. Now I don't want anything to happen to any political figures in real life, but man, it was almost like watching a comedic version of that guy go out of the plane.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Wow, and Silver Server says Judas Bullet from Luke Cage. Was that a hammer? Was that hammer tech in here?
Yes, that was.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, it makes sense that they're using hammer tech in that regard. Yeah, like I said, this was a very fun episode. It was another step up, and more of a step in the right direction in terms of bringing the story forward. And again, because of the way that they were able to structure this season and have everything go so seamlessly, once these stories start to transition into one another, it doesn't feel like there's some big separation. You still get elements from the previous pod, but then everything still feels kind of new as well. And this, definitely kept up that way of storytelling. So
yeah,
But enough of me in my ramblings.
No. Those were all great points. There was one other thing that I did want to bring up. I had forgotten on my bit. Just this is where we get a point where Fitz had made Ada to protect Gemma. Of course, always concerns that she could be in danger, and obviously we know she's been kidnapped 3 times, twice on this planet. But so again, always what is the motivation for it, and that becomes kind of a driving force as this sort of arc goes on. Is how much both of them really need to be together, and is the motivation often for their breakthroughs, good and bad. Okay, so all right, then I get
Same
to
with Radcliffe too, with like Ada, because she is based on his girlfriend that we find out later.
We find out later, yeah. Though we do have Radcliffe's bit talking about being upset with Ada for killing Nathanson, which he had to do out of expediency. He wanted to wipe her brain before repairing her. But however bad Radcliffe is being, he still wants to preserve life. He still has that motivation. And I think that becomes a little bit of conflict as the arc goes on, which we'll get into.
Yeah, he says he has to adjust her lethal settings or something. It's just like, there shouldn't be lethal settings on her in the first place.
There's a slide bar for everything. Sometimes you gotta go to 11. Sometimes you gotta go to 11. All right, so let's move on to episode 11, Wake Up, the kind of May background episode where we get sort of her little arc, both her capture from Radcliffe, him calling ahead, instigating Sunset Protocol, how early on he had sort of set up a lot of these ideas and plans, I guess as soon as Ada started making that brain. And this is also where we get the reveal that there is a second LMD on the base, which the writers use really well with everyone's dialogue to sort of play and hint at who that could be. You've got a post-coital Yo-Yo mentioning to Mac that his arms don't seem real. You have Fitz talking to May about it's just how you're built. Fitz makes a mention to himself about not being programmed that way. So we get a lot of play in with dialogue and incidents of who is real and who isn't. We find out later on who that exactly is. But this does kind of get us that kind of, again, just the fun bit that they get to play with this show is getting us to question things of what is going on, letting us stew with it a little bit. Because of these short arcs, it doesn't last, which I think is the perfect pacing. Is we get one, and by the end of the episode, we're kind of settled and we're moving on with the next bit, which is all great. So yeah, we have May's whole escape simulation. Because the spa wasn't working, we get to find out that, well, give her a chance to escape and then wipe her memory and do it over and over again. She starts to go into her own kind of time loop, though it's not really a loop in that sense. Getting further and further along each time, which is, again, this is how you keep May. You have to sort of orient the world that people will accept. And that ends up being where we get our big reveal, is what becomes the basis of our framework world is, well, you got to take the fight out of May. What was it Radcliffe saying? She's been fighting a fight that she lost long ago. So I will go in and fix that fight, which for all of us knowing is back to Bahrain and the formation, the birth of the cavalry, which ends up being, instead of killing the little girl, she gets to save the little girl, which creates an entirely different reality. Anyway, it's a great work bit on psychology there, both playing with the audience and who is real and who isn't, and then also dealing with how do we accept or fight against the reality that we are surrounded with. Again, I love the psychological inplay that goes on here. Rob, let's move things on over to you. What's your take on Wake Up?
This one of the things I love about talking about this is that I had forgotten so much from the original time I watched this, way when it first aired. And so getting into this episode and watching May, you feel like she's gonna get there, she's in that heartbreak, of like, of her reality now. And as much as she, brings it and takes it to Ada, it's all just not really happening. And as satisfying as seeing what happens to Ada, again, I can never see enough. And bad things happen to this character. And on a side note to that, boy, have we gotten murderous in our little panel here this season. We are talking about just taking people out. Like this person needs to go, and I want this person to get killed. Really, like it's wow. We really we feel very strongly about the bad guys in this season, man. We usually are like we when we talk about Ward, right? Like as soon as I say Ward, Don's ears probably perk up and be like, yeah. Like we have complex feelings about it. We don't just but we talking about it. We don't talk about we just want to end this guy's life. We there's lots of things we talk about. In this season, we're just like robots and evil senators, and it's just like no, they all have to all just burn. And the other part that I just want to discuss is just when Radcliffe slips up and reveals and just the subtleness of it, you really have it because they have us paying attention to so many moving parts, having us questioning who what where, and then just have this little conversation and just that one little conversational slip up, and then just Fitz's reaction to it as just as slight as the conversation went, Fitz's casual answer to it, but with an extreme answer, just casually, and how we all must have reacted the first time to just kablam, and it's we're like, oh God, and now it's revealed who the real LMD is, and it just again more showing the relationship between these two guys and where they're going and where they're headed. Like even an LMD Radcliffe is so good. And again, we can never say enough good things about John Hannah. In this is like the best. I think this is probably the best thing I've ever seen him in. And maybe that's because he got a lot of time since he's been around since season 3. He really got to develop this character into what he becomes and how he ends up. And I think of all the guest actors that have had a nice arc that usually lasts just over a season, I think Radcliffe has got to be up there with like Enoch. As far as just people who just take this something that could just be nothing and something you've seen before, right? We've all seen the guy who always gets out of things character before. And he brings it to a whole nother level because there's parts of me that just really loves this guy. I'm rooting for him as he's stabbing us in the back because I know that he could be better and that he's striving for some sort of betterment. Just it's his execution of all of it that is messed up. And the hope was my daughter foreshadowing that we'll get to that'll pop up later for Mac. Just really, really great stuff and more great fight choreography and just ways that they just mess with us with really unique storytelling. Just fantastic episode.
Right on. Don, what about yourself? What did you think of Wake Up?
I mean, listen, just as Rob was saying, John Hannah's performance, amazing as usual. Loved him in not only Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but also if you guys have ever seen season 1 of Spartacus Blood and Sand, and also the kind of prequel series. I forgot what the name of it was now, but point is, John Hannah, takes characters that shouldn't really be all, not that shouldn't be all that important, but that you wouldn't think are going to be all that important. It's like, okay, yeah, he's kind of the Weasley guy that isn't going to get too much shine, and then it's like, oh wait, no, he's important. He's very important. How did I not see his importance coming? So yeah, and just it's funny because with his whole relationship with Fitz and him kind of having taking on a fatherly role when it comes to him. Yeah, he wound up letting that whole thing slip because I'm pretty sure he didn't mean to just out himself like that. But he was so comfortable with Fitz that he let his guard down for a moment. And in that moment, it was just kind of like, oh, really? Okay, then now I have to do something about this. Where Fitz is up there thinking that everything is on the up and up, and yeah, man, it's so messed up that Ada went rogue and all this other stuff, and yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, oh man, why would you betray me so? I don't even like my dad as much as I like you, and here we go. And of course, Senator Nadir, being Senator Nadir, because Senator Nadir, and how are the Watchdogs always a step ahead somehow? How? It's like and what, by now you would figure maybe they need to send a red shirt into their offices, into a Senate office, because it seems like every time one of our regulars shows up in the Senate trying to do the spy work, they get recognized or captured. So send in a red shirt next time, that doesn't have any papers on them. So if they get caught or, if they get captured or killed, it can't be traced back to S.H.I.E.L.D. Oh, man. Like, how does this always keep on happening to them? It can't just be plot, can it? I mean, yeah, the Watchdogs should not be that ahead of them all the time, that they're just able to be like, oh, yeah, okay, so, we got a couple of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents here, no, just the regulars, same ones like we caught last time. I don't know why they're back. I mean, like, putting on the nose and glasses was not gonna fool us one bit. Yeah, the whole Groucho Marx thing never actually works. Yeah, but discovering that Ratcliffe was an LMD. Wow. Because now we had the question, how long was he an LMD? I don't like. Did they actually reveal how long that Ratcliffe was LMD that was hanging out with Fitz? I don't know if they actually.
I don't think it's that long, because I mean, Ada's just kind of did her upgrade. May was just replaced, and now they said second, so it's probably within the last episode, the moment that he thought he was being possibly suspicious. I think they swapped him out. So at the beginning of this episode and a previous one, most likely.
Yeah,
but no, they don't say specifically.
Yeah, so it's definitely one of those things where, I mean, like, think about how good of an LMD maker you have to be able to fool someone who helped you make the LMDs to begin with. And it took Fitz a minute before he was able to figure that one out too.
Yeah.
I mean, now wait, so you know what? They should have brought in Gemma. Remember, Gemma was the first one to figure out that Ada was a LMD.
Yeah, Gemma is the android litmus test.
Yeah, pretty much. Listen, as soon as Gemma is able to see him, but then again, see, damn, now that I'm thinking about it, I need to go back and see whether or not they actually had did they have any scenes with Ratcliffe and Simmons?
Well, we can probably assume with the Darkhold upgrade, that's what makes it pass for human. Because at this point, then nobody knows any LMD, and that becomes the big issue. Is she could tell Ada's programming because she was still a machine, or Ada 1.0. But with the Darkhold brain upgrade, as Silva Surfer is mentioning here in the chat, that does sort of alter what they can get away with and how they can pass.
No, wow. I mean, damn. Oh, Ratcliffe, you sneaky bastard.
Indeed. All right, Corey, what about yourself? Why don't you wrap up our wake up discussion?
I was with you guys on the whole frustration with May trying to escape and then realizing it's all just in the framework. So she's not actually escaping. It kind of reminds me of those bad dreams you have where you like think you're fighting something, but it's actually just all in a dream. But you're still experiencing all the emotions and the terror of, 47 Terminators chasing after you, or whatever your nightmares are. Yeah, and then I loved the fear on Ratcliffe's face when May got out, and she's like, "You son of a!" And he's like, "Quick, Ada, the sedative!" And she jabs May in the leg, and I was like, I wish 10 more seconds just to see what May would do if she got her hands on his scrawny little chicken neck and strangled him. Anyway, there's some good little quotes in this episode. There's we have the last moment where real May is with Phil is this episode right at the beginning. I mean, they flash back to show you what happened, but
sure, yeah.
And she says something about, you don't have to twist my arm to crack open the bottle, and he's like, I wouldn't dare, you might whip me, whip my hand. But so I love those little moments, those funny moments. We have like stronger hints at Ada not really having any moral compass, because she doesn't understand why people need to be alive. Like she literally asks Radcliffe, why do we have to keep May alive if we have her android self downloaded? We don't need her anymore. And Radcliffe says, we're not killers. We have tie-ins with the movie where Daisy is actually going in to sign the Sokovia Accords, but that doesn't happen because of the incident. So maybe that's a good thing. Yeah, and it was very frustrating that Nadir is always one step ahead of them. But as Phil's character said, it lets them know that they have a leak somewhere.
Yeah.
Because there's no other way for her to know. But I would have thought they would have done a slightly better job with bugging her office. So that was a bit frustrating.
A little sloppy.
It was. We also get the hint, or we get the first mention, I think the first mention, that Yo-Yo knows Phil likes May and May likes Phil. Because she says something like, if it's preferable to get to know each other in tiny little small pieces, But Yo-Yo has a thing with doing things slow. She calls Mac Turtle Man. She thinks May and Phil are taking it too slow. So, it's all about her superpowers or speed. So she just wants everything right away. There's no patience there with her. I like the conversation that Radcliffe has with Android May when she shows up all mad about, what did you do to me? And he tells her, why don't you do what you truly want? And he knows that May loves Phil, which I thought was interesting, because I didn't think he would pick up on that, because nobody else really in the team has picked up on that. So he must be very observant, and or because they mapped May's brain. This is probably why he knows her inner thoughts and desires and whatnot. But he tells her, why don't you do what you want? And my comment underneath in my notes was, how can she do that if Radcliffe has coded her to do his bidding? That's not free will. So she really can't. She can just do what's within the parameters of her coding. And I like the comment where May says, we are who we are, flaws and all, which is interesting coming from an android perspective of what it is to be human. And then, of course, we find out that Radcliffe is working with Nadir because he's a total and absolute insert descriptive here. Whichever one you want, it'll work for the scenario. Just, ugh. And then we have the Russian dude called the Superior, which reminded me a lot of, like, was it season 1 arc? Season 2 arc with Garrett, not Gareth. This isn't Labyrinth. Garrett. And he's like, he was, and he had a title. I don't remember what his title was. It's been too long. But all the bad guys, all the clairvoyant, thank you. So all the bad guys have this title. I am the clairvoyant. I am the superior. I am, it's like what Phil said in the first episode. Oh no, they gave him a name, right?
It's all about
Scorch.
branding.
I'm Scorch.
That's right.
They gave him a name. Yeah. So those are my little observations. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. No, branding's important. You want it simple. You want it easy to remember. You don't want it to be misspelled. There's rules to that.
Shield did it wrong. Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement and Logistics Division. That's a mouthful.
Yeah, I love that it was Radcliffe's line. It's my first priority to preserve life that gives him away, which is again referring back to all of the references in everyone's dialogue. Everyone says something, but this is the one that seems perfect for Fitz. All right, so Rob, you get to lead us off with our next episode, episode 12, Hot Potato Soup, the return of Patton Oswalt.
Okay, so
Star Wars.
And all, look, for full transparency, right, to make sure that there's an even playing field, and I, don't like everything that has ever happened on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., because, that just wouldn't be honest to say that I love everything on here. You know what I mean? Like the people who just can't see any faults or whatever. But this episode to me is like the Blackout episode. There are some really good things in this episode that I can't deny, especially near the end. But I'm kind of done with Patton Oswalt's character. I think I really am. The Koenigs I thought were really interesting. I liked what they did with him earlier. But I find him real creepy. I find some of the way he is just really creepy. He's the kind of nerd you don't want to run into, at a con. Like I've been trapped in lines at cons with people like him, and it's not fun, and it's weird. And as an agent, I know that they're all capable, but it's their persona and the weird way that everybody sees them. Like when they talk about it's catching a Koenig is like catching moonlight, and I'm like, have they all been like is there some sort of weird like some sort of hypnotic suggestion that's been placed inside their brains about these people? Because I just no. Like did you see him try to run away from these guys? Yeah, he wouldn't pass the fitness test. Sorry to be a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. Just wouldn't. That's not a diss. I'm not shaming him. I'm just saying, look, you should be able to pass certain tests. And there's no way he would be passing the physical to be a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. And then Anton Ivanov. Now, I know, Darren, you like Zach McGowan. And I don't. I do not like Zach McGowan. I almost feel like I almost was going to start doing a green eggs and ham thing with Zach McGowan. There's just something about him, man. I didn't like him on Shameless. I have not liked him in anything. There's some sort of weird, when you sometimes you just meet somebody and you go, nope, this isn't going to work out. That's how I feel with him. And I mean, and to his credit, that's what makes it makes it real easy to dislike his character, Ivanov, is I'm just predisposed to not like this guy anyway. So in that respect, it's perfect casting, because if you wanted me to hate the guy, yeah, already got me in there. This guy can't die fast enough. And brutally enough. And thankfully I get to see a lot of things happen to this guy over the course of the next few episodes. But also his motivations are so basic. I mean, I know like we're going to talk about what those actually are, but I grew very tired of this episode rather quickly because of those two aspects. Even though, like I said, it's the hot potato trying to keep the Darkhold away from everybody. I liked, and how it's still, they get it in the end, and how it's revealed about, like Simmons figuring out, that May's the LMD and everything. And all that stuff was great, but there was just too much of the other stuff for me that I just couldn't. This is my least favorite episode of this arc. And that's all I got.
No, totally fair. Totally fair. Yeah, I'll talk about Zach when it comes around to me. Don,
I am not jealous, Silva. No, I just can't. I can't with that guy. Okay, I just can't.
And I have absolutely no problem with that opinion at all. At all. Don, why don't you let us know what you thought of hot potato soup?
So, Rob, like his Russian accent, eh? He's a very tough guy. Very, very tough guy. I do not think you want to mess with him in the six-pack abs. That is all I'm saying. I do not think you want to mess with him in his six-pack abs. He talks like this. He drinks beer. He drinks vodka.
Vodka.
He is very strong like bull.
At least he's not eating that raw onion, because woo, that would be bad for the breath.
Oh, God. Oh.
Please.
I'm sorry, Don. I just muted like that whole thing you said.
Oh my God.
It's this type of stirring emotion that you get from fans of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Nah. So, listen, the Koenigs. I mean, dude, how could you not love the Koenigs, man? I mean, look. Yeah, there's no way that any of the Koenigs, I'm not even sure how many of them there are at this point, but no, they should not have passed the physical for all of them to be agents. But look, their grandfather. This was a family tradition. Okay, I'm an agent. My daddy was an agent. His daddy was an agent. So come on, yeah. I mean, hey, Silver just said they were literally grandfathered in. Okay, so I have no problem with him, but yeah, not the guy you should be entrusting with Darkhold. He's the guy you entrust with lanyards. Okay, lanyards.
Yeah.
That's his job. Oh, you're level 7. Here, you get this lanyard. Okay. Sorry, you're only level 2, so you get this lanyard and you go through that door there.
Level orange and level blue now.
Yeah,
no more spectrum of security.
Yeah. So, I mean, listen, and that's how you get the Watchdogs doing what the hell they do, because I'm still trying to figure out right now. Because what is Agent Blake still? No, Blake wasn't around at this point. They had already gotten rid of Blake. So how the hell are the Watchdogs still one step ahead?
We don't know what happened to Blake. He disappeared. He went to Russia. I don't know.
Yeah, so you get Ratcliffe again with another double cross. It's like you double crossed Shield, you double crossed Nadir, you double crossed. Did he double cross Ada? Who knows at this point? So like for him to be the orchestrator of damn near everything that's going on, brilliant, because it's like every time you think he can't get worse, he finds some way for you to be like, oh, really, you did that one too, like how long have you been planning this? Like this isn't regular villainy here. This is villainy mastered to a whole different level. But it's just like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna have a double cross here, a double cross here, I'm gonna add a triple cross over here. If I can get to a quadruple, I think I get special armor or something like that. It's like an RPG where it's just like, yeah, you do all these little things and somehow you get all these upgrades. I don't know if he actually got the upgrades, but it seems like that's the way he was planning. Like, okay, yeah, if I have this person kill this person, but then right before that they tie this person up and kidnap them, but then they're able to escape, they can get the other one that killed this one, and then somehow I become president or something like that. And that's the way it seemed like he was playing this entire thing, because it's like, wait, okay, you're already tied to your crazy LMD thing, and now you're tied to Nadir, and now you're tied to the Superior. Where does your plot end, sir? Where does your plotting end? Like, there's no reason for you. And then the worst part about it is that it's like he still doesn't feel evil. How is he doing all this evil and yet still somehow does not feel as though he's doing this to be nefarious? It still somehow feels as though he's doing this, expecting somehow for there to be like a good outcome where essentially everybody wins, or at least the people that we be considered the good guys win. And it's like, but no, but you're getting people killed and kidnapped and tortured and all this other stuff. People are having little mini wars. But how is this not coming off as the most evil thing possible? Like he's like, I'm sorry, he's worse than Thanos on that level. Because at least Thanos, you know what was coming. With Ratcliffe, it's like, wait, hold on. I thought I had you figured out, and then here you come, and it's like, oh no, where? Oh, you thought I stopped there? No, there. That's. And even when you get to there, you'll find out there's another thing. It's like one of those Easter egg hunts where every time you pick up an Easter egg, it's like, okay, I finally got the prize. No, this is just another egg to take me to another egg that is supposedly the prize. Oh, yeah. I'm just, why? Why do you have to be so evil? Why? I can't even say no more. I just horrible.
All right. Radcliffe has broken dawn. All right. Corey, why don't you wrap up our hot potatoes? Well, I guess I got to wrap up. Why don't you continue with hot potato soup? Sorry.
Well, we've got the frustration of Radcliffe against the Keenings. Can't even say their name right. I love the quotes at the beginning. I've got a bad feeling about this. These aren't the droids they're looking for. Roads? Where we're going. We don't need roads. Just the geekiness was great. I don't mind them, the brothers, but like Rob had said, they've kind of worn out their usefulness in terms of story arc and plot, and I'm ready to move on to something new. We do know that they were in the tech department, so that might explain a little bit more of why they're not trained as agents per se. They're the people that were doing all the computer techie stuff. So think of like first season Fitz. You know, we wouldn't expect him to be able to not get kidnapped, right? The Russian or the Radcliffe bot was speaking Latin, which I thought was really cool. I looked up what he was saying, and his first line was, I hope it translated as I hope that our friendship will be everlasting, and it was said by Cicero originally. And then the second one, Vir sapit ki whatever, loquitur, etc., was a wise man is one who speaks a little. And then the die is cast, which I thought might have been a little insider hint, as like Radcliffe has already set up something that's going to play out and they can't stop it. The die is cast.
Right,
that was cool. Mac, again, my representative in the anti-robot movement. The only thing worse than a robot is a possessed one. When Radcliffe's just like going off the rails and talking all weirdly. Darren, you had mentioned earlier, but in this episode, we see again that Phil wanted to protect May. So that's why he gave the Koenigs the Darkhold to hide it, because he didn't want May to have to deal with it, which I thought was an interesting change, because previously we've seen Phil constantly giving May these sometimes questionable jobs. And she's even brought it up about like, you never asked my opinion when you had me do your dirty work before. Just so you know, I'll do what you want, but you know, I'm not held responsible. Like, you still have to take responsibility for your actions. Yep. So it's interesting that to protect May, he's not letting her do this this mission. I did like the one of the Koenigs was fangirling about Quake, and then totally called out the entire fandom, where he's talking about like fan fiction online, and he's like, oh yeah, there's these great stories, mostly it's you and Black Widow, they call you Quack. I was like, oh my word, they really went there. So the writers are it's circles within circles within circles, breaking the fourth wall and all that. But I thought that was hilarious, and talking about shipping, and yeah. We also get information on Fitz's father, and we learned that his dad was just a horrible person. There's a quote where Fitz says, it was either Fitz or Gemma, that he would say Fitz was not enough, not smart enough, not, whatever. And I do love that Mac gets very protective about Fitz when he finds that out. And I'm not sure if it's this episode. I think it is, that him and Gemma are talking, and Mac says something along the lines of, I'd like to have a very long conversation with that man. And Gemma just says, get in line, me too, So they're both so protective of Fitz and how he was, really poorly treated and abused in his childhood. We have an almost May and Phil kiss, almost, but then of course it gets interrupted by work, which is frustrating. And I love also how Gemma talks to Fitz about why she fell in love with him and why he is so special to her. And she mentions that, because he's been betrayed so many times by Fitz, or not by Fitz, by his father, by Ward, now by Radcliffe, he could very easily just put up a wall and just ignore people. But she says that he became this open and caring person, and that's why she fell in love with him. And then Mac comments to the Radcliffe bot, I have something you don't have that will continue long after I'm gone, a soul. So addressing that issue of like what makes a human, and how are they different from a robot or an android. we learned that Phil always wanted to read Ulysses in pubs in Ireland, and he invites May to come along with him, which I thought was kind of sweet. And then they have their kiss, their first kiss, and Phil realizes that she's an android. It's not the real May, which breaks my heart slightly because, come on, you couldn't even give Phil a kiss with May. So not fair. And then my heart continues to break when she steals the book and gets injured, and Radcliffe just comes and takes the book from her and leaves and says, you know, you weren't designed to last long. You were just designed for a purpose, and now you're disposable. And she has asked him, like, take me with you. Please take me with you. Like, I don't have a purpose. And it's almost like an abusive relationship of, you know, if you leave me, I don't have anything else. So that was just heartbreaking and horrible. And then we learned at the end that they burnt all the androids except for May, because if Phil can't find the real May, that's all they have left of May. And I was just like, I can't deal with it anymore. Go to the next episode. Hand me the Kleenex box. So,
yeah, you know, it was cool because those really did kind of give some great foreshadowing. Obviously, Gemma's discussion with Fitz of why she loves him is particularly because how he responded to his father. The fact that he wasn't in his life allowed him to become the kind, caring person, open, loving that he is, which again foreshadows what happens if his father was in his life and how he would turn out. With the May bit too, yeah, you get your big Melinda kiss, which I know a bunch of people went kind of crazy about. Yes, it's not a real one because it's LMD May.
Awkward.
But it is that strong relationship they've really leaned into this season. It is a culmination, which is one of those things where in later on seasons where they seem to sort of dismiss it gets kind of frustrating, even in 5, which we'll get into another point. But also Radcliffe abandoning May, then you weren't built to last. You were one job pony. Just go after the Darkhold and that's it. Does set up his own failure later on because now he has a model that's not set with the mission of everyone else, but also still kind of thinks that she's May, which is that fun conflict that we get in by the time we get to self-control, which really pays off just beautifully. Yes, we of course have the Superior officially introduced, played by Zach McGowan. Yes, I am a bigger fan than Rob, and I will tell you why, and that is Black Sails. If you have never seen Black Sails, I highly recommend it. It was 4 seasons on Starz. It's sort of a prequel of the Pirates of Treasure Island, like 20 years earlier. Zach plays Charles Vane in that show, who you hate opening up, and by the end you love him because he is the one pirate that is always honest, will always tell you straight. You will never be lied to. You may hear horrible things, but he's not going to lie to you and mess with you. So it's just really one of those great characters that someone can come out from, and it's just made me want to see him and everything else that he has done. He also did the 100 or the 100, I think, for a season or two. But Black Sails is really the one that I would recommend with him. Let's see. Yeah, the Koenigs, the book. Honestly, I don't really have much notes on this outside of the fangirling or the fan fictioning.
Are you looking at me for that part?
No.
Hey.
I'm looking at all of us. But it is, it was one of those where it's like, you should really read this. Actually, no. You shouldn't read any of that. Which may be good advice to everyone. I don't know. I'll just leave that there. Yeah. So some great setups, some great little bits. Not necessarily the best episode in it, but you're right. There's a lot of important things that happen within the episode, which really keeps it, I think, moving along well.
Oh,
all right.
Also,
yeah.
Davis thought the Cannings were robots, and
Oh, yeah.
that was funny. Everybody thought that was hilarious, except for him.
They've played with that. They've played with that for a couple of years now. So I think that's, again, they're old models LMDs. Yeah, that was the funny one.
Yeah.
All right, Don, are we back to you now? I think so. I think you get Boom. You get Shockley's little transformation.
Boom. Am I allowed to say that now? I mean, you gotta be careful, you know.
No, it's still okay. I think you can get away with that one. Yeah.
Okay. So, this was a very kind of not gut wrenching, but it was kind of a messed up episode because we actually finally get to see the woman that Ada was modeled after. And it's like, wait, okay, why does she not sound like the person? So okay, this is a little odd, but all right. It looks just like her, but sounds different. And you find out the whole backstory, about kind of why Ratcliffe created Ada. And it's like, oh man, this is just sad, but the fact that Ratcliffe has kind of kept up with this project of his really summarizes kind of how far off the deep end he's gone, because here he had someone that he was supposedly in love with. This person gets sick, and I guess his instinct here was, well, how can I recreate her, but just make her the way I would want her as well. So that was sad and creepy on so many levels. And so we also get someone who has new abilities now. Finally, no more Nadir. No more Nadir. Thank God, no more Nadir. Yeah, and like I said, this whole episode, unfortunately, due to the way certain things transpire and finding out the reasons why Ada and the framework were both created, like I said, they show the kind of moral decay of Ratcliffe, but then also just how far people are willing to go to preserve something or someone that they love. So it's beautiful, but it's also very tragic, and yeah, it to a certain extent, it almost feels like a kick to the chest from Bruce Lee. Yeah, man. I'm going to let Agent Corrie take it away. She looks like she has something very heavy on her mind, madam.
Yeah. Goodness. Yeah, this episode had a lot in it. I mean, it was interesting because we saw a bit of a parallel between Phil and Ratcliffe, which I thought I'd never say ever, but I'm saying it now. But they both have lost someone that they love, but they go about dealing with that in completely different ways. Ratcliffe, when he can't fix Ada, as Agent Williams said, basically abandons her, or Agnes, the original Ada, and then makes a robotic version that won't die, or if it dies, can just be rebooted and run again. So maybe that's a bit of him not being able to deal with her going to die, but it's just very morally gray. On the other hand, Phil has lost May, And we see a bit of that same like desperation to get her back. And at first I was a bit shocked with Phil because he says something along the lines of, I'll do whatever it takes to get May back. And if that means I have to find that Agnes woman and make her talk, I'll do it. And I'm like, whoa, Phil, that is, this is not you. May would not be impressed. Like, no, like just use your charm and Coulson-ness and talk to her and be, you know, play on her sympathies and use your like pathos and ethos. Don't use threats. And like, you know, she's, as Max says, she's in the last few days of her life. She's dying from this inoperable cancer in the brain. You know, Phil, that's not a nice thing to do. But he redeems himself by going to her apartment and apologizing. And he even has that really cute line about, I know you're tired of hearing I'm sorry, so I won't say that. I'll just apologize. So that shows he was actually listening to her. And again, he uses the Coulson charm and the ability to read people and to be a good communicator to ask for her help. And by the end of the episode, even though she does help him to a point, but then she chooses to go with Radcliffe. Not the best decision, but okay. Phil doesn't begrudge her that. He understands and he verbalizes that, you know, it was her choice. She was allowed to choose that. It's her free will. And, you know, now we know that May actually is in the framework by some things that Radcliffe had said to her over the comms. So in that sense, we see that Phil is a better person, has a better moral compass. You know, he's not going to just bulldoze over everybody to get what he wants. Yeah, and then the other thing that was kind of sad in this episode is that Mace is just so badly wants to help out and be a hero and redeem himself. And we find out that the one thing he's been tasked to do, he can no longer do because Simmons had done all his, you know, health scans, and this serum that he's using can kill him at a moment's notice. And if it doesn't kill him on the first time he uses it, it's like exponential. So the more he uses it, the more it compounds the risk that he will have a heart attack. And so he's basically lost what he signed up to do in S.H.I.E.L.D. and his kind of purpose as being a hero. And so it's very sad that, you know, he just desperately wants to be able to help. Kind of like a pre-serum Steve Rogers. He just wants to help. He just wants a chance. Like, just let him sign up for the army, and he can't. And this is where we kind of see Phil coming in as that mentor voice again, where he calls Mace and he gives him this pep talk about reassuring him that he'll find his place, even though he can't use his super strength. You know, but it's really, I felt sad for him. I don't know, maybe I'm the only person who felt sad for him, but I guess you can kind of relate if you've ever had a dream that you wanted to follow, like say you wanted to play in the NHL or you wanted to play basketball. And then when you're in college, you wreck your ankle or you blow out your knee or whatever. And so you can never do that thing that you were working towards and dreaming of. And it's kind of the same thing with Mace. He had this thing that he knew he could do. You know, he's not, as you said, Darren, he doesn't have an inflated ego. He doesn't think that he's a Steve Rogers. But this is something he could do with within his scope of abilities. And so now he has lost that. So I found that was really sad. And he's delegated, basically, he says, to team mascot. And dealing with the press and answering the questions. And so he just feels like he's been downgraded so much. Like he was on the team, now he's been benched by the coach, now he's the mascot. It just keeps getting worse. And he even tells, I think it's Simmons, he says like he can't forgive himself for fumbling the ball.
Sure.
So a lot of sports metaphors here, right? But at the very end, he finds his spot, and I'm not sure if it's the spot he should have chosen, or if it's just he's so desperate to help it anyway that he'll do anything, even if it's suicidal. And so he becomes the blocker, stopping the Russian trucks, and basically is captured and tortured and beat up and potentially gives his life to save the rest of his team, which is a Phil thing, right? Phil got a Chitauri through the chest in order to help out with S.H.I.E.L.D. But I'm always a proponent of, is there another way we could do this without losing people? So I went to the school of Coulson, and I like to save my pawns instead of sending them off to be cannon fodder. The other thing that was kind of creepy, Ada takes Agnes's necklace after she's in the framework and she dies in the framework. Yeah, that's creepy. Taking the necklace off of a dead woman that looks exactly like you, Ada. Not cool. Not cool.
Yeah, it was interesting with Mace's kind of choice there at the end, because it also shows that his lack of training, because all he had to lean on was his super strength. He couldn't fight. He didn't have any other skills. And that's the great thing we always get to see with Daisy, is the fact that she was a badass agent before she had powers.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, I think, the points that they're kind of always hitting on, and how we get to see the great arc. As you mentioned before, this is the great Gemma badass arc through this season, how she just starts fighting, and then, well, we'll get to self-control and all of that.
Stop.
Yeah.
But I mean, although I did have a little problem with that, because Mace, we know he has military training, so he should have basic training, and we really don't see him use any of that. So I wonder if they deliberately handicapped him within the show for a reason.
I can't remember his military background. I know when he says that he was in Vienna when the explosion, and he went through and then was just up, and they've talked about his dedication to the country, but I can't remember them specifically saying military training. So that could just be something I've lost in my notes. Anyway, let's see. Boom. Yeah, there's only a couple little things I want to get here. You hit Mace's wonderful bit. I was head coach and then quarterback and now benched and then mascot and then blocker. Daisy says frack in this, which you gotta love as a Battlestar Galactica fan. Coulson discovers a framework. I think we also are seeing that arc with Ada here, because she changes when she realizes she was modeled after someone. And then seeing the emotion and seeing a Radcliffe's kind of attention to that, I think that is pushing her with whatever little Darkhold corruption might be working within her brain as well, into kind of her more obsessive mode. So yeah, taking the necklace is kind of taking that identity, I want to be a real girl thing. We have Shockley's bit with Senator Nadir. First off, Shockley, the effects they put together with him reassembling himself looks so cool. God, I love Mark Kolpak's work in this. And we get the same fun philosophy as, you have now joined the enemy. What do? Him willing to, be an Inhuman for the humans in that sense, which I think is, again, whenever you have any type of obsessive dedication to a thing like that that's built on hatred, sooner or later somebody's going to be discovered. They should have tested the Terrigen beforehand of sending things out. See, you got to be complete with all this. But the one thing I did actually want to bring up is the Superior has read the Darkhold, and it's a throwaway line almost that he gives to Radcliffe. He's like, yes, I read it last night. And the answer I got was for you. And I found that to be really interesting, that it didn't corrupt him in the same way that it's corrupted everyone else. And I think that it comes down to, one, I don't know about whether he has a stronger mind and will or not, or if that has anything to do with it, but how much he is built upon earning what you have. He talks about he didn't like the rich guy in the family that was just given by his dad. He disrespected his father for fawning after him. He talks all about that, the people that work hard that earn nothing, that's okay, because they're working hard. The Darkhold leans on cheating. We even talked about with the doctors beforehand, what would have been like if we had actually done the work and not spent so much time looking for the book. in order to get what we wanted. And I think the fact that the superior isn't interested in cheating makes the Darkhold less interested in him. But if it can point him towards Radcliffe, who obviously does want to achieve things he can't yet get, cheat in that way, it is more. So it was just, again, it was a throwaway line, but it was something that kind of stuck with me afterwards. It was like, wow, you read the Darkhold, you get corrupted, but he never seems to be corrupted. He doesn't even learn how to build himself later on. Why would that be? And I think they laid that ground with is the Darkhold leans on people cheating to get their knowledge versus earning it. Anyway, that was just my own little thought discussion. Rob, do you have any final thoughts on Boom?
So, I just couldn't get out of my head that maybe he just doesn't know how to read.
It's in English. It's very hard.
It's good pictures for him.
It couldn't.
So,
it kept trying to put up a different language that he would understand. He's like, no.
It just ended with an arrow pointed at a picture of Radcliffe.
And just says Radcliffe, and oh yeah, picture book, good.
So mean, but I like it.
The other thing, like I was going to mention was the special effects in this episode. I thought were amazing. And it was fun to see Quake get to just keep blowing the guy up. She gets to take out her anti-inhuman, against another now inhuman. And like you said, like these guys that have this thing based on hate. And I mean, it never escapes. It just always gets in my head that these guys who hate mutants and hate powered people. And it's like, really, they're first they're afraid, but they're also jealous of the power. They want the power. They don't have it. Why don't I have it? And then when they get it, what do? They do exactly what you expect them to do. I had forgotten that this was where Nadir gets blown up. I mean, died. I didn't know that I forgot how she died. And so I thought that was really amazing how it's just not how I expected it to end up for her. It's just right in the middle of an episode, like she's been a big bad and just boom, gone, nothing. And I know we needed to end her arc, that whole arc, because of where we're headed. Just, boy, did they really like burn the bridge on that one. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're like there ain't no coming back from things. Like they really wanted to make sure, like, is there any possibility that Senator DeVere's survived that? No, it was right in her face.
Atoms are all over the map.
So we got what we wanted. Nadir is gone. The situation with Agnes, very sad. And like you said, she made her choice, and who wouldn't, how hard of a choice must that have been, because she had to do it. The person she wanted to stay away from is the one who has the answer to her problem. And how you'll make the deal with the devil to continue living. This person who is not good for her and is not happy to see this person, and that person still somehow has something that you need. And now begrudgingly you have to take it. And it's, you don't have to, but like the temptation to do that. And I don't think it's saying too much about, going back to, bad relationships or anything, but still it's like, what would you do to live forever? She's got a death sentence, and now in some way she can continue on forever. And who wouldn't, it's a very tempting offer. It's a very, very tempting offer.
And we have two different characters that actually had that offer or question. One was Senator Nadir's brother, where she says, "Come with me, trust me, I'll," like, don't trust her. She tried to kill you already, right? And Radcliffe, "Come with me if you want to live in a virtual world."
Well, but to him, it is life, which again we kind of get into. So it becomes perception question in many ways. All right. Well, we've get to episode 14 now. One before the ending, and that is The Man Behind the Shield. Kind of our background flashback episode. Corey, you want to lead us off with this one?
Sure. I'm going to lean on my notes heavily for this one because I can't remember all of it.
But
yeah, I've got a page and a bit, but
let's try and move through. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is our episode where we have, Mace has been captured. He's been handcuffed and he's hanging in a prison. It's very medieval and horrible. So we have him trying to escape, and then we have this opening with the Daisy and Phil fight scene, which I loved because at first you think it's actually a real fight scene, and then you realize they're actually working on a version of the framework. So, this fight that we're having is all virtual. And that's like our first little step towards the next arc, which is all in the framework. So that was really cool. With regards to the Superior, I mean, this is what he's doing with his millions and millions of dollars. He's hanging out in old decrepit bunkers and Cold War submarines. And I think Phil made a joke about him being like a Bond villain and to be prepared for sharks and trapdoors and spiky things when we go
Sharks
in.
with laser beams. Yeah.
Sharks with laser beams. We also learned that Phil does not have Facebook, which I guess being in a spy agency, that's probably a smart thing. They've actually talked about social media a bit with a tongue-in-cheek or the negative connotation, implying that, remember Phil had a line saying that people are practically monitoring themselves. We don't have to do our job anymore. We just check out their Twitter, their Facebook, and their whatever. We know what they're doing at all hours of the day. So that was funny. I love that we have these flashbacks to Phil's mission with Melinda when he was Phil 1.5 instead of Phil 9.0. He's fumbling with things and he's trying to do things right and messing things up, and Melinda is just chewing him out at every opportunity. His Russian is bad. He says something about we're here to help save your cats. And May knocks the guy out, and she's like, wow, that guy would be really confused if he didn't have a cat. So she's just not letting Phil get away with anything. And then she calls his bluff. Like, she says that he has 9 different tales that he shows when he's lying. And she suggests sunglasses, which I was like, oh, this is where the sunglasses originated from. It was May's idea. And now we see him in all of the movies wearing the cool sunglasses. And then they eventually they're broken in one of the earlier episodes and he throws them away in frustration. But the sunglasses started here, which I thought was cool. And they talk about being undercover as husband and wife. And she's teasing him that it took him like 3 minutes or whatever to unhook her bra. And he's like, well, they didn't teach us that at the community college. She's like, yeah, so they don't, do they teach foreplay at the academy? And she says, we are taught to commit all the way to the mission. And I can just see Phil squirming. So it's nice to see a little bit of baby Phil when he's first starting out and not very good at things. And he's going to use the biohazard material spill is going to be his way to get some time, which again, we see him use that in Brock Rain. So it's funny to see that, it started when he was first working as an agent, and now he's still using some of the same techniques and tactics. He's just much better at them now, and they're more believable. What else? I love the fact where Mace is kind of chewing Fitz out about all the science experiments they're doing and how they are problematic. And
Mac.
Mac blames. Sorry, did I say something else?
You said Mace, but
that's
okay. It's the reading
Mac.
thing. Yeah.
Mac, that he's chewing Fitz out, and he says, if Fitz hadn't built this killer robot their year would have been a lot easier, which is true. And then he's implying that you need to think about the implications, which also Simmons had said. And he says, like, there's a line between scientists and mad scientists. And I thought, like, this quote sounds very familiar. Where have I heard it before? And of course, it's very similar to the Jurassic Park quote of, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should, which is exactly what Mac is calling out Fitz on. And then we just see Mace's unbridled, undying belief in S.H.I.E.L.D. He still thinks they're going to come for him. He has a line like, I believe in Agent Phil Coulson, Special Agent Phil Coulson. And I'm like, me too, bro, me too. It's going to be okay. Yes, what else? So Mace is just, he's believing in S.H.I.E.L.D., which I found very touching. And for all its imperfections, he says, I believe in S.H.I.E.L.D. and its desire to protect people. And again, we have Simmons reassuring Fitz that he's not a bad person just because all this stuff went off the wire, offline when weird. She says, you make things from the genius of your mind and the goodness of your heart. You are not responsible for Radcliffe and his twisted ideas. So I like that. I also loved the kind of argument that Phil has with the superior, where he basically meets someone who's been waiting his whole life to get revenge on Phil, and Phil doesn't even really give him the time of day. He's just like, cool origin story, bro, but I don't even remember you, which to me felt a little bit like Tony Stark with the guy that started the Hammer Company, where he's like, I don't even remember you, dude. You know, you will. Or Wanda with Thanos. I don't even know who you are. You will now. So I'm surprised to see Phil kind of fall into that bit of a cliche, but I think he was going more for the humor of it and or not giving the superior the time of day because he's been causing so many problems. Yeah, and then at the end, we basically have a lot of our characters have been replaced. So it was all a ploy to get everybody to the location, the submarine, and they pulled out and replaced Mace, Mac, Phil, and the LMD reading says Daisy when they come back to the S.H.I.E.L.D. base, but we learn later on that Daisy hasn't been replaced. And then Phil goes and wakes up Android May on base. So now we have a robot apocalypse invasion going on, which, you know, that's great. Just my worst nightmares coming true.
You knew it was coming.
I know, but I mean, I think what I find so crushing about it is we get duplicates of our agents, which is great, but they're all horrible. Like, they're the agents you don't want to see. So, you know, it's basically like the precursor to Sarge. We get another really bad Phil character. It's like, no, I can't deal with it anymore.
It wouldn't have passed to give everyone the evil goatees from the Mirror Universe. Okay, it just that just doesn't work for this one.
Man, okay, fine.
Yeah, so this is kind of some background. We get to see we like seeing the younger May and Coulson interacting. Yes. We see that there's a lot of already a little bit of sort of tension between it, sexual, otherwise, not entirely sure. In fact, Coulson has this whole discussion with one of the guards about how they're feeling, which was kind of funny. Also, the fact that they might have gone out after this, except the fact that May is just started seeing Andrew. Yes. And that relationship does work out, and that sort of puts it. So, I mean, and that was kind of fun. We get a bad wig on May, which looks great. It's just, yeah. Some interesting stuff with Ada. Here that Ada really does believe in Radcliffe. You know, I've been wondering through this season, does she running her own agenda? Is she working with? Is Radcliffe unsure of how that's gone? But from Ada's interaction, especially with Anton, she does see Radcliffe as a genius, and she's very loyal to him. We have, of course, her prime directives, which has a conflict and then solution next episode. But I like just kind of seeing that there is that kind of mutual respect between Ada and Radcliffe, which of course means that everything is about to go wrong. We get a great Coulson murder board showing the Anton's obsession, the fact that Coulson is behind everything. He's behind Fury, he's behind the Avengers, he's behind the aliens, he's behind the Inhumans. He is the thing that the Superior has been searching for, which is comical and interesting and also oddly right on the money. While it's very conspiracy sounding, he is kind of right behind everyone in the forefront of things. So I mean, there is a certain truth to that. Yeah, Coulson's final line to Anton, which I'm sorry, this will be the one thing I will take my time with because this was awesome. All these things you've done, all the energy you've spent, the hatred. And you know what the funny thing is about it? I have no idea who the hell you are. I've been on hundreds of missions in my time. The one you're so upset about, I was sent to retrieve an object. And if I'm being honest, I don't even remember what it was. As far as I'm concerned, you're just another red shirt like so many others who tried unsuccessfully to stop me from saving the world. Because that's what I do. So, cool origin story, bro. But this means nothing to me. The doors blow open, Quake walks in. She, on the other hand,
Love it.
which again, it's just kind of this perfect sum up. And you're right, normally that is a speech, that is a statement that's delivered by a villain to a hero in a way of dismissal. We even had that at Street Fighter, Raul Julia. When you met me, it was the greatest day of your life. To me, it was a Tuesday. You know, I mean, it's just it is an undercutting, but yeah, for this.
Wait, Ming Na Wen was Chun-Li in that Street Fighter.
Yes, I mean, they get a loop around there. But yeah, so it is one of those things, but again, given to the Superior from Coulson, and the fact that it's not like, it's not because I'm doing all these great things or whatever. It's like, I'm busy saving the world. And all of you guys just keep walking up. But this is what I do. And it is a sort of a perfect reveal and twist. And yeah, we get the delay. Gemma's asking why all these timelines seem right. And then we get the invasion of the LMDs. The fact that all four of them, Mace, Mac, Coulson, and Daisy, are going through the detector at the same time makes you think, oh, it's all of them. But you know, that always gives you room to mess with people, which is the best part. So Rob, why don't you continue on here with your thoughts on the man behind the shield?
There's really not much left to say. I was just gonna say, I mean, you can summon this episode up in what you said. I was just gonna say, cool origin story, bro, and move on. Other than I thought that the flashback reminded me a lot of Cap and Black Widow and Winter Soldier, with the separate orders and how they do things like that. That stuck out to me a little bit, but yeah, that's about it.
Don, you got anything to add?
You know, Agent Coulson, I spent very long time looking for you because you make me spill my vodka as I'm going through conspiracy after conspiracy. And here, finally, I have you right in front of me. I have my vodka. I will have my revenge. And you have the nerve to tell me, cool story, bro? Okay. Okay, I see you. Man. Yeah, you know, for all of his prognosticating about how, yes, you are at the center of everything. Yeah, he definitely hit him with the, oh, for you, it was the most important day of your life. For me, it was a Tuesday speech. And I mean, look, I love that, because Coulson is the guy who needs to be cool under pressure, because when he's got a team that's behind him and is competent, it's like, hey, what is there for you to worry about? And besides, he's already been dead, so you can't really, scare him with killing him at this point. So yeah, I mean, unfortunately, our new director has not been able to fool the superior. I mean, but I think mostly because Ivanov just didn't care. So there was that going for him. But we hey, look, we gotta start come by.
It's like you're talking too much about Shield. You should be petting me.
Yeah, apparently. So yeah, forgive me if my thoughts start to drift now. It's kind of hard to think with a plot on my chest. So yeah, look, we have Ratcliffe and Ada, now with their new kind of dynamic, Ratcliffe trying to experiment more with the framework. And this is just interesting to see how things progress, but it also gives an insight as to almost kind of what it would be like at the start of the Matrix, to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like the beginnings of putting humans into this kind of Matrix like world. I mean, because if you remember the Matrix, they were like, yeah, we built the most perfect world, and then people's minds just couldn't take it, and then we had to find ways to make it more like regular life with conflict and stresses and all that stuff. And that's kind of what Ratcliffe has been doing here now. So it's interesting to just to see how that whole thing plays out, but then also the reveal of Android everybody's, because the robots are here to attack. So later on, when we actually do get the agents in the framework, it makes things kind of come full circle, but it also gives a glimpse into a much different world than what we are used to. And I guess he's like, hey, that's enough petting now. So I'm gonna, I should yield my time.
And that's how cats work. Yes. All right. Well, that leads us to our final episode of this particular arc, and that is episode 15, Self-Control. Many people call this Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s best episode. And why do they say it? Because it has everything. It's also fast-paced. It starts off the wall. It goes full bore towards the end and then gives you his glimpse into this whole new world. There is emotion in this. You have love stories. You have sister stories. You have questions of trust. You have Gemma killing Fitz, stabbing the heck out of him because it's not real Fitz. You have this great scene right before that of the two of them, the emotion of Fitz, I'm real, and Gemma not knowing, is she real or not? That lays into this whole other scene with Daisy and Gemma. God, one of Elizabeth Henderson's honestly best scenes right there. Terrified, angry with this knife, not questioning who is real. Do I know that I'm real? I mean, there was so much emotion in with this. Great fights, great effects. We get this killer quake ball that disintegrates the MacBot and blows Coulson through the walls. you get suspicion, you get dark. Who is there? Who is real? We get Davis and Piper in the group getting together to do a last shot at the Zephyr, because Davis can fly the plane. Nobody else can, which again, get your pilot's license if you're going to be an agent. You always need to fly at some point.
He's a beginner.
A beautiful emotional scene between May and Phil, or Maybot and Philbot, on who is real, what is the reality there. The fact that May is still of the older model, thinking that she is May, and all the programming is only subtle and suggested, whereas Phil's all up in front, and that creates the conflict of humanity. I'm afraid to die. I love you, but you're not you. I mean, it's this beautiful summation of everything that they've gone to. And even Ada's bit, who we've seen getting darker, especially once the Superior comes in, a whole new human for her to observe. And she takes all of his lines. Last one, he's talking about even filth has a purpose. And that's how she ends the last one. So as she's building him this whole new thing, it's just, she's moving into this whole evil space. It's just, again, I could literally just describe each moment of this episode, and I know we're going to get into a lot more bits, but why is this so good? Because it's got everything. It's the perfect summation of everything that is built to it. It gives you some satisfying answers while opening the door up to brand new questions. The effects are great. There's not a moment to pause and catch your breath. Man, this is good television. At the end, we get our first glimpse of the framework. In the framework, and the fact that it's in every computer all over the planet, it's totally spread. I mean, again, there's just so much in this episode to talk about, but there's like 3 other people here, so I'm gonna let them do some talking too. Rob, what was your take on self-control?
I just realized that I was looking at my notes, and then I went, wow, my notes kind of end really weird. Like I get to the end of this page, and I'm like, huh? And then I realized, oh yeah. So for sake of time, I'm just gonna say that this sets up so many things, not just here but later. I mean, when you get like, it shows how like far everything has gone, everything that, like you said, has been building towards this, and how it, like with Fitz and Gemma, and how it ends here, and us not knowing who either, like it's terrible for both of them, it seems, no matter who is an LMD or not. And if they hadn't lingered a bit too, like if they hadn't turned Fitz away from camera, I would have never suspected either of them. But at that moment, I knew he was.
Don't look
at me. Just watching them, you know, like do something that just feels like the most unnatural thing. Like it would be. I mean, can you imagine if this had been like a real situation they'd ever have to be in, where she would have to murder him? Like, and I mean, this show goes there every once in a while. It was like, it reminded me of when Daisy was going at Ward near the end, and it's just Hive, but she just hauls off and just starts, and it's the same thing here, where it's like, except with 2 people who love each other, not 2 people who one person just hates the other one. And how that's going to affect things going in, because she feels like she murdered her soulmate, and then to end up where she ends up, you know, when they get in there and find out how everything is. But also, like for me, the most emotional moment was the stuff between Daisy and Gemma, which sets up so much the rest of their relationship, or the rest of the series, of like that moment when it's like, I'm going to save my sister, you know. And it just flashes me back to everything that they've been through over the course of these 4 years, and how, you know, these 2 strong women are facing down these impossible odds, and no matter what happens, I mean, they succeed. And this also reminds me so much, and I know you'll probably agree. You might not agree with me, but you probably agree with me that so much of this made me feel like John Carpenter's The Thing. This episode, so much of this is who can you trust, but also just the intense claustrophobic feeling and the helplessness of it all, and having to face down people that you care about. And just the big moments like that are in that kind of movie, like with May, LMD May making her stand, and showing that just because they're an LMD doesn't mean that they can't find some kind of humanity, and go out the way they want to go out. Like it's like it doesn't matter if May is a robot or the real May. It's somehow this May still got to the heart of May. And it's just, and I love how in the LMD poster that we have, right, May's the one singled out, but also at the same time, she's still the only one that's actually more like herself throughout the whole thing, whether she's an LMD or not, because she was a pawn. She was never in on any of the stuff until she was made aware. And even then she couldn't help it. She probably wouldn't even have gone along if she had been really given a choice. And so it's just like, I love that May is just May, no matter what. And that I'm going to let everybody else talk, because to me, that was like the most important stuff that's in here. So I pass it on to Don.
So we get the return of our most beloved fallen agent, Grant Ward.
Yeah,
now I know, but I know I'm skipping a lot, but come on, stand with Ward, okay? Sky Ward, Hydra Ward. Yes, it might not have been much in this episode, but come on, Ward.
He's a form sleeping in a bed in this episode.
So I mean, hey, look, you know what? Ratcliffe got what he wanted, kinda. Pretty sure he may not have exactly wanted to go out that way in order to achieve his dream, but can't make an omelet without breaking some necks, right? Or can't make a framework without breaking some necks anyway. So I mean, hey, look, at the end of the day, Ratcliffe got what he deserved, which is to be forever trapped inside of a machine world of his own making, and only for it to feel real and not actually be real. But then again, what is real? Are we currently in a simulation? Are you real out there watching us at home? Am I real? All right, existential questions put away for right now. Yeah, so I mean, look, the fight scenes with Daisy versus the LMDs, awesome. Of course, Gemma using her smarts, awesome as always. And Agent May, LMD May, fighting the temptation to give into her robot self, and being the person that, even though she wasn't programmed, even though she wasn't programmed to be that person, she still was anyway. As you guys stated, May is going to be May, and that is what counted the most here, because when we could have had a situation where it's like what was that quote from Terminator 3, I am a machine. We could have had one of those moments and we didn't get it. so you got to give it up to I guess the strong-willed personality of Melinda May, because that personality was so strong that even copied into an android brain with all sorts of backdoor Trojan horse programming, our Melinda May still shine through. So, yeah, that just goes to show you what kind of badass Melinda May is and why she will forever be the cavalry, no matter what happens. But other than that, stand with Ward. Agent Corey.
Well, I mean, we see that May is the one that's been in the framework the longest, and yet she's still fighting, which I think I liked that about her, that she doesn't give up. Even if her brain's been partially taken over. We know she's in the framework, and then we know there's Android May running around on base. Opening of this episode, Ada just straight up murders a guy while he's still alive. She's doing surgery on him, or they're splitting him open. Yeah, basically at this point, Ada is a crazed murder bot, and we should all run in the opposite direction very quickly and get a flamethrower and possibly any other weapons we can get our hands on immediately. Yes, I liked the conversation we had between May and Phil about pain and suffering, and how Phil's take on it as the android was, this world is better because there is no pain, and he doesn't feel the phantom limb pain from his arm anymore. And that kind of horrifies May, because her opinion is that pain is part of being human. Life is pain, Highness. Anybody tells you anything otherwise, they're selling you something, right? And Phil wants to remove the greatest regret, but when you remove the greatest regret, that's what makes you who you are. Those moments of suffering and loss and pain and hardship, it's like, polishing a diamond or a rare gem or something. It makes something beautiful in the end. And so taking that away, we even saw within the framework that they had to put in problems for May to realize that the framework, to accept that it was real. If there wasn't any conflict or struggle, then it didn't come across as real. We learned that Phil's greatest regret, or I guess hope or wish, is that he could have had a normal life, or at least seen what a normal life was like, and not be an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which to me, I think that's sad, because if there's no Phil, there's the trickle-down effect is just huge of how many people's lives were affected by his one choice to be an agent and all the things he did. Like the Avengers would not exist without Phil, right? There's so many things that the world would be so much worse off without an agent Phil Coulson in this Marvel world. As you said, Darren, when Fitz and Simmons realize one of them is an LMD, such an emotional moment. And this whole episode felt kind of like a horror film, where we're just waiting for the next person to jump out with the surprise or someone to attack. Especially the dialogue where she's like, "It's one of us, Fitz," and Simmons tells him, don't hurt me, don't hurt me. And he's saying, "I would never hurt you, Gemma." And we finally have a discussion of them potentially getting married at some point. And then he just turns on her and just savagely stabs her in the leg and then knocks her out with a paint can. I think that's what's most disturbing, is how fast they change from being a person you recognize to being a murderous killer robot. And the only thing, you talked about how frustrating it would be to actually be in this kind of a situation where you have to kill somebody you love, but it looks like a person you love and it talks like a person that you love. And the only like sort of real life scenario I can think this might be similar to is if you have a family member who's very sick in the hospital and they have either Alzheimer's or dementia, and so they're not aware of themselves and they're saying things that they wouldn't normally say, and you have to keep reminding yourself that like this is not this person talking to me, like this is the disease talking and the confusion talking, and so they don't really think this about me, or they aren't really going to tell me I'm a horrible person, because I know they wouldn't say that, but because they're sick or because they have dementia, they're saying these things. And like that scenario alone in real life, being a human is hard enough. So imagine that in this scenario for the episode. And I feel so sorry for Simmons, so much she has to go through. We have Daisy finally figuring out the truth, where she finds the whole army of Daisy LMD clones, where they're all just like lined up, which first off would make me freak my mind out if I walked in and saw a whole bunch of me's in a room. Like, one me is enough. We don't need more than one of me. But how smart Daisy is to like take off her pants and her shoes and then go hide among all the other LMDs. And it's like, which one? You know, again, just like the horror vibe that you're getting from this, right? And again, as Darren said, that scene where Daisy's trying to prove to Gemma that she's real, and she's like, "Let me quake you. I've like just a little quake for your bones, and then you'll know I'm real." And you know, a robot wouldn't have these abilities. And I don't know, they're hugging and they're crying, and I'm like, who's cutting onions in here? Oh, you know, and when Simmons describes what they're up against, she's like, so we just have to like overpower a bunch of crazy robots and all of our team that thinks we're the enemy, and steal the Quinjet and find the submarine and plug ourselves in. And Daisy's like, well, when you say it like that, you know, right? Crazy plan. But yeah, what else? Ada Murderbot. So I guess my favorite quotes were, I love where Skye is just so confident and she says, I will fight them. I will take them on myself. This is not a sacrificial play. I will beat them, I know. Through all this insane crap we've gone through, one thing I know is you and Fitz belong together. This is not how your story ends. And I'm like, yes. You know, because Simmons is just, she's losing hope and she's terrified. And I love that Daisy just comes in and is like, no, I'm not letting this happen. Like, we were fighting this together. And then her next line is, I'm going to beat the screws out of those junkers. And the two of us are going to get out of Dodge. Which I'm like, yes, let's do it. I'm with you, girls. Let's go. What can I pick up and use as a weapon, right? So I love that. The sleeping gas, super smart. Again, an easy way to tell who's an android and who isn't. Just knock out the humans. The only thing I had a question about was Mac and Phil both shoot Daisy. And from what I could see in the episode, they were shooting to kill people. Those weren't icers. Those were real bullets. So she gets shot twice. And then at the end of this episode, they're already putting her into the matrix, the framework. Wouldn't she be bleeding out? Doesn't she need first aid? Like, are we assuming there's a time jump here? Yeah.
Gemma patches her up.
I guess
Gemma's
so. I
there,
don't know.
yeah.
And
a wizard did it. No, that was a different show. Sorry.
And then I love, again, the scene where they've just managed to fight their way through. They open the glass doors. That's more Star Wars, but I don't know what to call them. And May's there. And of course you think, oh no, she's going to stop them. But she actually bands together with them and helps them, which is like android-human teamwork. Yay! So one robot that isn't trying to murder us all. And May says to Phil, he asks her, what did you do? And she echoes what Radcliffe said in an earlier episode, what I wanted to. Because Radcliffe had told her, like, why don't you do what you want to? And what May wants to do is protect the team and save Phil. And this Phil is not her Phil. And the other quote I'll give, and then I'll let you guys talk, is where she asks Phil, "Are you afraid to die? Because I am. I know I'm not real, but that doesn't make the pain less real. The pain, the regret, that's what made you a person I love. My programming was to get the Darkhold, but my impulse to keep Coulson safe and close, that desire came from me, and you're not him." Boom. And she blows him up. And yeah, just that moment of her being able to make her own choice, even though she is a programmed machine. I love that. And that she acknowledges that the pain is a part of being human. And removing that pain removes part of what life is.
Yeah.
And we also learn in this episode that if you die in the framework, you die in real life. Mace, maybe pay attention to this.
Yeah.
Please.
That is nice that they establish those rules straight off. If your body dies, the brain still lives. That solves Ada's paradox. But if you die in the framework, then you die in real life. Why? Drama. Because it works for drama. It's
Because
funny.
your brain thinks you're dying, so your body, I don't know.
Yeah. You guys keep hitting on the need of pain, and while it is, I think, the worst in all of the sequence of movies, it always reminds me of Star Trek V. I don't need my pain taken away. I don't want my pain taken away. Pain is what makes us who we are. I need my pain.
Well,
Yeah, that's my horrible Shatner impression there.
Even in terms of biology, pain is a part of the body's system to let you know something's wrong. You step on a nail, you feel pain because your body's saying, hey, there's some foreign thing in my foot. We should deal with it. You know, if you don't have that pain, you don't realize something's wrong. You can't fix it. So even pain within the physicality of a human body serves a purpose.
Sure. Means you're alive.
So, you know.
Wonderful.
So,
well,
yeah.
That covers this arc. We went a little longer than I expected, but I think we did cover everything. Now, next week, we will wrap things up with the final 7 episodes of Agents of Hydra.
Mm-hmm.
Very exciting. Can't wait to get to that. One little change, though. Next week's episode will start at 6:30 Pacific, 9:30 Eastern, as opposed to the regular 6 and 9. Just a little bit of a delay, but still all of this great stuff. I'm going to let everyone say goodbye, and then I'm going to say goodbye myself. Rob, why don't you lead things off? Let people know where they can find you and all that stuff.
You can find me at Smirking Gun Reviews. You can find me on Twitch at Smirking Gun Plays and on Twitter at reviews_gun.
Beautiful. Don, what about yourself? Where can people find you?
So, for the most part, you know, you can find me here with you guys. And if not, you can find me on Twitter at Don Willie. That is IDONWILLI. And of course, as always, you know, it has been so great to be here and can't wait to do this again next week.
For sure. All right, Corey, what about you? Where can people find you?
I have a website called Literature with Charm. If you look up or Google my name, it should show up. I'm also on Facebook as CL Shoemaker. That's my author page. I'm on YouTube here with Darren's reviews and some of the past reviews with Rob's channel. And if you also Google at Biblical Bliss, that's my YouTube channel as well. So you can find me in all those different places. And this week, just make sure you stay away from any robots that want to put your head in a jar.
Generally good advice. I think that's usually good ones. Want to be sure to thank Silva Surfer, Devra, Hassan, Babaro, everyone joining us live in with the chat. Who else did we catch? Someone else was here and I am missing. Everybody who is catching us in the archives, very much appreciate you watching the show. And if you do like this, please be sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe for more shows. Otherwise, I am D. I am out of here, and we will catch you all next week. Thanks, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.